Patrick, guess what came in the mail today?
Oh, what?
This.
Stick it in!
Hey, what is up everybody? It is Gambito Gaming. Nintendo as of recent has been, canceling real life people instead of canceling their games, but this hasn't always been the case. Back when they were an actual video game company and not this tyrant leader who thinks they can just dominate every market ever. They had to inevitably trash some projects throughout the years, and that's what I want to talk about today. Unlike other developers who are more open and willing to share canceled projects, share failures, we all learn from each other's failures after all. Nintendo keeps their canceled projects very hush-hush, low under the house, where they also keep all the dead bodies of all the hackers they killed throughout the years. Many of these canceled games never even got that far into development to begin with, so I thought today I'd like to play a nice little game of What If Nintendo Cancel Games Edition. So, without further ado, let's take a look at Nintendo's troubled children who never made it out of the nest. Mario sports games have a long history of being great video game versions of their real-life sport counterparts, combined with stuff from the Mario universe. I'm not the biggest fan of these games nowadays, and really, can you blame me? But back in the GameCube and Wii era, these were some of my favorite Mario games. Specifically the Mario Baseball series. I feel like the gameplay was implemented really well in those games, being a bit simpler than other baseball games on the market at the time. How the fuck am I supposed to throw the ball? Nintendo saw the potential of these games, and during the development of Super Mario Strikers Charged, they greenlit another Mario sports game that wouldn't make it very far in development. The game in question is known as Super Mario Spikers, and was meant to be a cross between volleyball and wrestling. It was developed by Next Level Games, who had also developed Super Mario Strikers on GameCube, and was at the time also developing the sequel for the Wii, and Nintendo decided to split their team, and work began on Super Mario Spikers. Next Level Games actually also developed another canceled wrestling game, so it seemed like they had at least that experience under their belt, and it was a pretty good choice for a wrestling/volleyball Mario sports game. However, due to Shigeru Miyamoto's deep-rooted PTSD, he couldn't stand to watch even a second of the violence shown in the demo for Super Mario Spikers, and the game was canned. I think it had something to do with the fact Miyamoto got suplexed into his dining room table when he was a kid by his dad or something, and seeing his golden child Mario getting RKO'd in the same manner really sent our boy down a dark road. Super Mario Spikers could have really been a great game, up there with the greats of the Striker series. There's only a few images and concept art left from the project, and these reveal a lot of ideas they had going into the project. Take for example this image that looks like it presents early art for a Donkey Kong Island type map or something. There's also concept art for wrestling rings, and it really puts into perspective that we could have almost had a Mario flavored WWE game. We went wrong somewhere, and I think it's this. Take me to that universe, please. John Wick 4 never came out in that universe. I don't care. I need to play Super Mario Spikers. I need to RKO Luigi and teach him who's a fucking bitch now. Donkey Kong was being cradled in the warm arms of Rareware in the early 2000s. Then the towers fell and Microsoft bought Rareware from Nintendo, canceling several Donkey Kong projects. Listen, you tell me which one is worse, alright? Donkey Kong Racing was one of these canceled Donkey Kong games Rareware had their greasy mitts on, and it was supposed to be a spiritual successor to the Diddy Kong Racing game on N64. The game was planned to release on GameCube and would have featured several Donkey Kong characters, along with rideable buddies as the vehicles. And these aren't just any random animals they're out there abusing, okay? These are Donkey Kong alumni, get it right, alright? They got Rambi, they got On Guard, and they even got Steve Buscemi up in this bitch. Not much is known about the game, but from the small trailer shown at E3 2001, this game would have featured a full cast of characters, including appearances from Lanky and Chunky Kong. The game seemed pretty ambitious, but it never had time to get its legs, as the acquisition caused them to lose the Donkey Kong rights, and the game would then be converted into another canceled project known as Saberman Stampede, which would have released on the Xbox 360. However, due to growing pains, this game was also canned. Donkey Kong Racing is still up there with one of the games I really wish would have come out. I'm a huge Diddy Kong Racing fan, so to have a full Donkey Kong Racing sequel on the GameCube, I mean, that would have been a game changer back in the day. I'm telling you, man, a Nintendo-owned Rareware in the GameCube era, that shit would have hit different. Hudson Soft is best known for their work on the Bomberman series and the Mario Party games, but they were also responsible for a lesser known series known as the Game Boy War series. These were Japanese exclusive Game Boy games that were the predecessor to the more well-known Advanced War series Western countries would see later on. One of these war games was going to be featured on the Nintendo 64 and was known as 64 Wars. 64 Wars seemed pretty ambitious at the time, taking the series into a 3D space while also promising support between the Game Boy war games and the 64 war game they were working on. And this seemed like a very early attempt at the GameCube/Game Boy Advance connection play that would be featured in the next generation of consoles. Very little is known about the development of the game, and all we have to reference is this trailer that was shown at Nintendo Space World 1999. Other than that, there are a few development photos here and there, and it seems like the game was still in its early development phase. After the recent remake of the original two Advanced War games, it really makes me wish this game would have released. Having an Advanced War style game with the old school N64 graphics, I think that would have been a pretty cool thing to at least revisit from time to time. Plus, it would have been pretty cool to see what little bit of Hudson soft charm would make it through into the game. There's just a certain way they go about absolutely butchering character models that are already established on the same generation of consoles. I mean, this wasn't going to be an exception either, because just look at this homie right here. Holy shit. Donkey Kong Coconut Crackers was a canceled puzzle game that was supposed to release on Game Boy Advance. This was for the same reason Donkey Kong Racing was canceled, as Rareware was staring down the Microsoft buyout barrel, so a lot of these projects were ultimately canceled. Donkey Kong Coconut Crackers was meant to be a puzzle spin-off game featuring characters like Donkey Kong and Cranky Kong. The game was a unique version of Tetris with Donkey Kong theming around it. That's the best way I could surmise it. The game would feature several levels and extra modes like endurance mode. After the buyout, Rareware wasn't quick to cancel Coconut Crackers, as they apparently tried several different reskins with characters like Banjo and Saberman. It is a shame games like this never saw the light of day, but to be honest, this wasn't the potential Rareware was known for in the Super Nintendo era. So was it really that big of a loss? Like, yeah, they were thrown to the sharks over at Microsoft, but I don't know if a mobile Donkey Kong puzzle game was the best direction for Donkey Kong, especially since, you know, on the Game Boy and even Game Boy Advance, we got remakes of the original Donkey Kong Country series. So there was already proof they could make a platforming Donkey Kong mobile game, yet they still decided to go with a puzzle game. I don't know, not a huge L for me. Interestingly enough, there was an official advertisement for the game that was featured in a trailer of the cult classic animated film known as Food Fight. This was taken out of the finished film, as most of the film was infamously stolen off of hard drives and had to be redone, so this advertisement was only featured in the original trailer for Food Fight. This was a small fun fact I probably could have gone the rest of my life without knowing, but I do love the idea that when this trailer came out, Game Boy Advance games were being advertised, and when the film actually came out, that was the same year as the Wii U. Retro Studios, most known for their development of the Metroid Prime series and the Donkey Kong Country reboot series, was once tasked with making a spin-off game in which players would control the Mario enemy known as Boo. The only remnants we have of this game comes from a contract artist who worked with Retro Studio brainstorming ideas for this game. According to the artist in a later interview with IGN, Sammy Hall explained that both games were in pre-production when canceled, and, quote, "I doubt many at Nintendo proper saw much of this, if any of this stuff. I was mostly put into a room like Milton from Office Space and tasked with brainstorming ideas between other projects." So to me, it seems like this was the very start of this strange Boo-themed game, but we can gather a lot from these concept images, and it seemed like the game had a lot of potential. Nintendo hasn't made many attempts at making an enemy the main character of a spin-off title, so this was definitely new territory for them. It seems like this game would have told a story of a young Boo who attends something known as Haunt University. There you would attend classes, and in one class you would be chosen to volunteer to be dunked into a cauldron like a bad Wednesday afternoon in Alabama. From this, it is speculated that the Boo student would gain powers, and that would help him fight off enemies known as Broomies. Seems like the game was being developed for a mobile console like the DS or Game Boy Advance, because of some of the statements the artist used to describe some of the pieces. For example, loads of Boo sketches in very, very unfamiliar territory, deep in debt at Haunt University, powers and abilities, Broomies possession powers, spiders, spider boss variations, tiny stuff for tiny handheld resolutions. This seemed like a really ambitious game that would have really paid off had they stuck with it. I also think Boo is probably one of the best characters they could have chosen to put into a solo game spin-off. Like, I just don't think Goomba Goes to Boarding School would be as much fun, you know? Many games that were big in the 2D gaming era of the Super Nintendo and Sega Genesis had a little trouble getting footing when the industry transitioned into 3D graphics. However, the one that got it right was Super Mario 64, and it seemed like everyone at the time was taking hints from that game. I mean, who wouldn't really? Besides the god-awful camera controls, this was the best homework to copy off of back in the day. One of the companies who took interest in merging to the 3D space was Capcom with the production of Ghosts 'n Goblins 64. Ghosts 'n Goblins was a popular Capcom series that started on the Nintendo Entertainment System and was infamous for its relentless difficulty. It seems like this trend would remain the same in the N64 version, but we will never know because this game didn't get very far in development at all. The only actual confirmation we have of the game is a press event that Capcom put on in November of '96, and the game was confirmed at that event, but nothing was shown of the project before it was quietly canceled a few months later. And many think the remnants of this canceled game turned into a game known as Maximo on PlayStation 2. Maximo is probably the closest we could have gotten to a decent representation of the Ghosts 'n Goblins universe in a 3D landscape, at least at the time anyway. To be honest, I think it's better we didn't get Ghosts 'n Goblins 64 because really sit down and imagine not only having to fight the game's difficult enemies and bosses, but also the broken and lackluster controls it definitely would have offered. And if you disagree, if you think it would have been good, all I have to do is show you a picture of Castlevania 64. Get fucked, idiot, I won this one. There you have it, a few of Nintendo's canceled video games. If you still like the idea of canceled video games and unearthing them and finding out about them, leave a like and I'll do more videos around this subject. I thought I'd just take a look at a few Nintendo canceled games and make a little content out of it. So yeah, I will be back with an iceberg video very soon and more content. I had to take a little short break because I moved and that took up a lot of my time, so I'm officially moved in and back to making videos, so expect more from me soon. Thanks for watching.